Good morning, friends. Today we're going to put in a full day of winter garden maintenance. We're going to start by staining the alfresco fountain to match the pots near the garden library. Now, I do love gray concrete, but I've decided that in the backyard I want all of my statuary, all of my pots to really blend into the garden a little bit more. I don't want anything to stand out or pull focus anymore. So I'm deciding to stain every single piece of concrete, every single terracotta pot a beautiful brown color to match the garden library and to match my raised bed garden. And I think this is going to be really nice. When you enter the main flower walk, I just want you to feel like you can float through that garden back to the library, back to the raised beds without anything pulling too much focus. And I think by having gray concrete in this area of the garden, it was just pulling too much focus. So this job only took me about 15 minutes and I am so happy with the results. And I started to think to myself, I wonder if I like this color so much because it kind of is the color of Grace. Grace is a silver lab, but a lot of times in the winter when it snows, she looks more like a light brown lab. I just love her so much. Now she blends into the garden just like these fountains do. So once we finished up our fountain project, I headed over to an area where I had 2 hummingbird trellises. I have some black raspberries growing over here, but I didn't plant them here. They just pop up every year. Last year I had 2 extra trellises. I stuck them here, but this area does not look nice, does it, friends? I'm not gonna hide my ugly bits and pieces from you. This area looks bad and it's quite problematic. You see here where we have this white siding with a dent in it, there is a bathroom behind that siding. And this year when we went down to 0 degrees and into the single digits, our pipes froze in that bathroom. So my husband asked me if I would actually surround that part of the house with evergreens to try to help with that problem. So we're going to tackle that a little bit later this year. Once I removed those trellises, I headed back to the raised bed garden. This year I'm going to be extending the raised bed garden and creating what I'm going to call a cut flower frame around my working cutting garden. So for anyone that's new here, I use all my raised beds to grow cut flowers that I sell at a roadside stand. And I don't really keep a lot of cut flowers for myself. All the cut flowers that I grow, I cut and sell. And so at the end of the day, there's actually not a lot of cut flowers or annuals to look at. Things are always being flipped, always being changed out. Succession planting is always my #1 priority. But last year I visited Longwood Gardens and they had recently redone their cutting garden. They still had beautiful rows of cut flowers that they succession planted, but surrounding that cut flower garden was what I can only call a cut flower border that wasn't being cut or flipped. And I'm really excited about the idea of having some cut flowers that are just for us. We can also mix in some vegetables and some herbs. Maybe we'll mix in some shrubs. I'm not really sure about that yet. But last year I also collected thousands of seeds from my personal dahlia collection, Sharing Grace, and I need a place to put all of those dahlias that I'm going to be growing from seed. So I'm thinking to basically use a lot of single dahlias, a lot of sage, rosemary, thyme. We can even plant things that I wouldn't normally grow anymore for cutting, like calendula. I love calendula, but I don't give it space in my raised beds anymore because I don't like harvesting it because the stems are so sticky. So this will really allow me to grow some of those cut flowers that I love the cut flower, but for one reason or another, I just don't sell that particular kind of flower anymore. So we're just getting started on this project, but I'm really excited to work on this with you this year. And if what I'm saying doesn't make any sense, I will link a video that I did last year showing how Longwood Gardens laid out that cut flower garden so you can get a visual of what I'm talking about. Now let's propagate some Forsythia together. About 80% of the Forsythia plants that you see on my property I propagated via layering or hardwood cuttings, and I always do this the exact same way around this time, right before Valentine's Day. We have one Forsythia shrub at the base of our driveway, and if I let it reach its 7-foot height, it would be far too big and people would not be able to safely see around the corner. So instead of letting it grow to its mature height, I use that shrub for cutting. So every year I cut it all the way down to the ground in February. I take the cuttings, place them into the earth, firm the soil down, and by the time we hit late April, these are all in bloom, and eventually in mid-May, they will have leafed out. Now it is worth noting, if you look up how to root hardwood cuttings, how to take hardwood cuttings, people are going to tell you to make the cuttings much smaller. Probably people are going to say, cut them down to 12 to 18 inches. But when it comes to things like Forsythia, willow, and even dogwood, personally, I've never found that to be necessary. You can leave them much bigger and they will still take root, especially willow and Forsythia. So to finish up our day, I'm just painting this garbage can surround. Maybe it's a little bit silly that I filmed this, but it's just one of those jobs that if I don't accomplish it now in the winter season, I know I'll never accomplish it. So it's just one of those things where on a nice cold day, I can get out into the garden for 20 or 30 minutes, paint something that needs painted, make the garden look a little bit better, and check off one of those things on my gardening list that if I would have left it for spring, I don't think it would have ever gotten done. Well friends, thanks so much for hanging out with me in today's video. In the next video, we're going to be setting up the flower stand for Valentine's Day, but we're not going to be setting up with cut flowers. We're going to be setting up with something else. I can't wait to see whether or not these things sell or don't sell, and depending on how Valentine's Day weekend goes, it might redirect the future of the flower stand altogether. I'll see you in that video. Bye friends.